A viral Facebook post is gaining attention online over an Edmonton woman's claim that the car dealership she was working at fired her for violating the dress code. Caitlin Bernier has filed a human rights complaint against her employer because of the alleged incident and says she was told her shirt was see-through, violated the company's dress code, and made male colleagues uncomfortable. Now, the viral post brings up the question, can you get fired for violating a dress code at work? Here to give us some answers on this from Samfiru Tumarkin LLP, Alex Lucifero. Alex, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Annette.
Can you get fired for what you wear to work?
Well, employers are allowed to institute a dress code, Annette, so there's nothing necessarily illegally or wrong with a dress code as far as the law goes. However, in a case like this, I think the concern would be that there may be different standards in the workplace when it comes to dress code. And so if this employer is treating differently men and women when it comes to what they're wearing, perhaps, and I'm speculating here, but perhaps they're asking women to dress more conservatively than men, for example. I think that's very, very problematic, and that's potentially discrimination under provincial human rights legislation.
How does one fight that potential for a double standard in what the rules are for men versus women if you're the employee?
Yeah, well, there are a number of avenues. So certainly most human rights codes in various provinces, for example, here in Ontario, we have the Human Rights Tribunal, and you can always file a complaint with the Human Rights Tribunal. In a case such as this, in a case such as this woman, she also has the kind of corresponding issue if she was terminated because of these circumstances. And because of that, she can also file a claim for wrongful dismissal in the courts and have the discrimination issue addressed along with that claim as well. There's a misconception out there, Annette, that a short service employee such as this woman, who was only employed, I think, seemingly for a few weeks, would be owed very, very little severance. And that's not actually necessarily the case. Even short-term employees such as herself would potentially be owed proportionally greater severance than, let's say, a longer-term employee. So you can be an employee of a few weeks or even a few months, and you may still very well be owed a few months of severance. And
Gotcha.
so that is something that this lady would be owed as well, potentially, along with any damages or awards for discrimination. So
from what you know with this case, did the company have the right to terminate her for this if it goes against their dress code? And we can have a look again. We've got the image of her, of what she was wearing. Did they have a right or ground to stand on here?
With all due respect to this employer, I think they handled this termination extremely, extremely poorly. I think an employee like this, even a probationary employee, Annette, deserves the benefit of the doubt, deserves at least a warning if there was even such wrongdoing. I mean, we don't even know whether there was an actual dress code in place here. And certainly if there wasn't, again, we go to this grounds of potential discrimination and having treated her the way they did. So I do think that this employer made, various missteps along the way. They could have handled this much better internally before she was even let go. Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, I think in letting her go, they've now opened themselves up to a claim for discrimination and for wrongful dismissal or severance. And I think they're going to have to, they have problems on both of those fronts. It's a lesson for employees that, you have more protections and rights than you would think you do in the workplace. And it's a lesson for employers as well. Make sure you're getting advice before making these kinds of decisions. They could end up costing you dearly.
Yeah, a lot of lessons to be learned in this one. Alex Lucifero, thank you so much. Always appreciate your time, employment lawyer.
Thanks for having me, Annette.